Beauty and the Beast. Once upon a time, there lived a very rich merchant. He stayed in a huge grand house with his three daughters. They were all pretty, but the youngest daughter was the prettiest. She had rosy cheeks, twinkling eyes, and a dimpled smile. She looked so lovely that everyone began to call her Beauty. Her sisters lazed about all day. They kept spending on clothes and makeup. Most of their time was spent in front of the mirror admiring oneself. But Beauty had better things to do. She would spend time visiting and helping the old and the poor. It would cheer those people greatly. Many young and handsome men wanted to marry the sisters. The elder ones arrogantly refused because they were waiting for a duke or a prince. However, Beauty would always respectfully say, "Oh my, but I think I'm too young to marry." She continues to explain with a smile, "I actually want to stay at home and look after my father." One day at breakfast, a servant brought a letter in a silver tray. The girl's father read it and went as white as a tablecloth. "Oh my God! I don't believe this! All my ships and wealth is lost in a storm at sea. I have to sell the house. We must move to a small cottage and find work." "Ah! Work!" cried out the oldest sister in horror. The second sister started piling up more strawberry jam on her bread. "What if this is the last time I could eat this?" she thought. Beauty went to him, patted his forehead, and said, "Don't worry, father. We shall be all right as long as we are together. Let us go to a ball tonight. Perhaps we can find a couple of rich men who had wanted to marry us," the elder sister told the second sister. When the young men came to know that they had become poor, no one wanted to marry them. "Where is Beauty? We are willing to marry her because she should surely make us happy," the young man said. The elder sisters became furious. They scowled so much that they looked ugly. Soon the merchant and his daughters left their grand house. They moved into a tiny cottage in the countryside. The cottage was damp and dirty. The two elder sisters hated their new home. All they did was to complain bitterly. "How can we live in this place like this?" They would sit near the fireplace and keep crying for the lost wealth. Beauty, however, tied an apron and started to work. She cleaned and painted the rooms. Beauty put flowers everywhere. She smiled and spoke kindly to the woodcutter who lived near the lane. He liked her good nature and left bundles of wood for her. So she started a good fire in the fireplace. Soon after, the cottage was filled with the smell of baking bread. As she worked, she sang. She managed to find things to make her happy. Beauty would get up early with the birds. She would always welcome her father downstairs with cheerful words. "Fried mushrooms for breakfast, father. I found so many mushrooms in the woods." "You are my treasure now, Beauty," he would say with tears in his sad old eyes. They lived like this for a year. Then one day, a messenger rode to the cottage. He told the merchant that one of his ships had turned up. It had taken shelter in a far off country. Now it had finally arrived back at the port filled with goods. "I must go down to the coast and sort things out," said the merchant. "What shall I bring for you when I come back?" "New dresses at last," said the elder sisters. We can have face creams, silk stockings, precious gems, perfumes, and hats with feathers on them, said the sisters. What about you, Beauty? Asked her father. You haven't asked anything for until now. I would like a rose, Daddy, said Beauty at once. A beautiful pink rose. The merchant was away for a long time. At last, the time came to set out for home. He loaded the vehicle with presents for his daughters. The rose was the only thing he could not find. As it was winter, only thorny bushes could be found. The merchant began his journey. Suddenly, a great snowstorm blew up. The snow was so thick that his horse could hardly see ahead. The merchant rode along. The snow settled thickly on his hat. He began to hope for a house to seek shelter. In the distance, he would hear hungry wolves howling. That made him anxious. At last, the merchant saw a light through the snowflakes. He was amazed to find that the light was coming out from a splendid palace. The merchant knocked at the door. Nobody answered. He put his tired horse in the empty stables nearby. There he found fresh water and oats waiting. Then the merchant walked back tiredly to the palace. He pushed the heavy door, which creaked open. Hello, called the merchant. Is anybody here? There was no answer. So he walked through the hall into a large room with a fireplace. There was a wonderful smell of roasted chicken. As he looked around, he saw a table set for a person. On it was a golden plate, knife, and fork. Food was spread out. The merchant took off his wet coat and went near the dining table. I'm sure whoever lives here won't mind if I sit down, he thought. So he sat at the table and began to wait. The golden clock on the wall struck 11. Now the merchant could stand it no longer. He grabbed the roasted chicken. It was still hot and moist. He tore it into pieces and began to eat. He had not tasted anything as good as that. There were plates of roasted potatoes, crispy onion rolls, and peas. When he had finished all the food, he noticed a silver bowl of strawberries and cream on the table. I can swear that wasn't there a moment ago, he said to himself. Before he ate them, the red and ripe strawberries tasted delicious. By now, the merchant was feeling very sleepy. He set out to explore the palace. He made his way through many grand rooms. At last, he came to a room with a lighted fireplace and a large bed. Without thinking, the merchant slid between the clean sheets. At once, he was fast asleep. Next morning, the merchant woke up and sat confused. The sun was streaming into the room. He looked out of the window. He rubbed his eyes, thinking that he was dreaming. The merchant could see a garden that was in full summer bloom. All the snow had vanished. Instead, there were huge beds of roses and grass as green as emeralds. His old clothes could not be seen. There was a new set of clothes laid out. He washed and dressed in the new clothes, which fitted him perfectly. On the dining table was food he liked best. It was heaped in silver dishes, juicy sausages, scrambled eggs, muffins that melted in his mouth, and a pot of hot chocolate. He ate to his full and stood up to leave. Thank you so much, whoever you are, he shouted before he went off to saddle up his horse. The merchant began riding through the beautiful garden. He remembered his promise to bring back a rose for Beauty. This house owner is very generous. He will not mind me plucking one rose, he said to himself. So the merchant plucked the largest and the pinkest rose he could see. At once there was a huge roar, and a beast appeared in front of him. It was so horrible to look at it. The merchant almost fainted. I gave you shelter from the storm and snow. I fed and laid out new clothes. What have you done in return? The merchant trembled. You stole the things I love most, my roses. Well, now you will die. I only wanted one rose as a present for my daughter, Beauty, stammered the merchant. Is there anything I can do to save my life? Nothing, roared the beast. After a moment of thought, the beast said, I will set you free on one condition. You have to promise to bring me the first thing that greets you at home. When he heard that, the merchant smiled with relief. He had a little black dog. It was always at the first to run out to meet him. So he agreed, put the rose carefully on his hat, and quickly set off home. Beauty spotted her father entering through the gate. The rose on his hat was bobbling up and down. I don't believe it! He has found a pink rose! As she was rushing out of the cottage, she cried out. Meanwhile, the little dog was dozing in front of the fire. Oh no, my dear daughter, cried her father. I have paid a dreadful price for this rose. He then told her of his promises. Don't worry, father, said Beauty. I will gladly go. The beast can't be as bad as you say. Perhaps he will let me go if I ask him kindly. The next day, Beauty and her father were both red-eyed and tired. Neither of them had slept a wink. You have to keep your promise, told Beauty. Yes, off you go, said her sisters. They were busy trying on the fine dresses their father had bought them. So Beauty and her father set off. Strangely, both their horses seemed to know the way to the beast's castle. The palace grounds were surrounded by summer blooms. It's magic, whispered Beauty, her eyes shining. All these roses in the middle of winter? I can hardly believe it, father. They tied up their horses and went inside the palace. In the dining hall, there was a delicious meal and 2 places set for them. Come, father, said Beauty bravely. I will eat if you will. There was a terrifying roar outside the door, which grew louder and louder. Beauty stared at the door, which opened very slowly. There stood the beast, looking even more horrific than before. He had put on his best clothes, a red velvet cloak, a white lace collar. This only made him look more ugly. He sat down beside them at the table and said, So, this is Beauty, for whom you plucked my rose. It is, said the merchant sadly. She ran to meet me when I entered my home. She insisted in coming back with me. I am glad that you did, said the beast to Beauty. She was surprised to hear that his voice was gentle. You must leave in the morning, said the beast to the merchant. Your daughter will be quite safe with me. The next day, Beauty's father cried and begged the beast to let her go. but the beast forced him to leave. Beauty spent the day walking in the grounds among the sweet smelling roses. When she sat in her room after dinner, there was a knock at the door. "May I come in?" asked the beast. "Of course," said Beauty, pulling another chair up to the fire. The beast spoke very wisely and kindly to her. She quite forgot how ugly and terrifying he looked. Every night he would come to her room. Beauty and the beast began to enjoy each other's company. Few nights later, the beast brought Beauty a large bunch of pink flowers, and that was roses. "Oh, how lovely!" she gasped. "Will you marry me?" asked the beast, kneeling. "Ah, I can't, my dear beast," replied Beauty. Then I will surely die," said the beast. Two large tears rolled down the beast's ugly face, and he left the room. Yet he continued to visit Beauty every night. Beauty soon discovered that the mirror in her room was a magic one. Sometimes she saw herself when she looked in it. At other times, she could see other people and things that were happening somewhere else. One day, the magic mirror showed her poor father lying on his bed, looking very ill. She also saw her sisters happily combing each other's hair and laughing. When the beast came to her that night, Beauty told him what she had seen. "I must go home and look after him," she said. "If I don't, he will surely die." "What about me, Beauty?" asked the beast. But when Beauty began to cry, he agreed to let her go home for a week. She promised to return. The beast gave Beauty a special pink rose and said, "Hold this rose and wish. It will take you wherever you choose. It will also bring you back to me. Don't forget your promise, Beauty." When he left her, Beauty at once wished herself to be back to her father's cottage. She came just in time. Her father was very ill. As soon as he saw Beauty, he felt better. She made a soup for him with special herbs that she brought from the beast's garden. His strength came flooding back. The sisters grew very jealous when Beauty described the beast and his palace. "I suppose our wooden bowls are not good enough for you now," they mocked. When the week almost came to an end, the sisters hatched a plan. "Let Beauty remain here and do all the work. Let us know whether her beast would come seeking her." Both sisters agreed that the plan was an excellent one. "If you leave, we're sure that our father will become ill again," the sisters said. Then they slyly sniffed onions to make themselves cry. "We can't bear to think of you going back to beast," they howled. Beauty was so soft and kind-hearted that she agreed to stay for another week. "Then I really must go," she said. "I have to keep my promise." She was rather surprised that she missed the beast so much. At the end of the second week, Beauty kissed her father and told him not to worry. "I am not frightened of the beast now, father," she said. "I know he would never do me any harm." Her sisters were bored with waiting for the beast, so they did not try to make Beauty stay any longer. Beauty held the pink rose in her hand and wished herself back in her room. It was evening. She waited for the Beast to come, but he never came. Beauty spent a sleepless night, tossing and turning. Next morning, she set out to look for the Beast. Beauty looked in all the rooms in the palace. Alas! There was no sign of him. So she went out into the garden. Dear Beast! Oh, my Beast! Where are you? Beast! Called out Beauty. At the edge of the garden, Beauty saw the Beast lying on the ground. How selfish I am! She cursed herself. I broke my promise. I have killed him. Oh, my Beast! I have killed you. She knelt down, took his rough, hairy hand in hers, and began to cry. When her tears fell on his face, the Beast opened his eyes. You forgot your promise to me. So now I'm going to die, he sighed. No! Oh no! Cried Beauty through her sobs. How can I save you? What can I do to save you, my Beast? Will you marry me? Asked the Beast. Yes, I shall marry you. Oh, Beast, don't go. Don't leave. I shall marry you. Beauty replied at once. There was a flash of light. The Beast vanished. In front of Beauty, there stood a handsome prince. Where is my Beast? Beast, where are you? She asked, looking around. Here he is, laughed the prince. A wicked witch put a spell on me. It made me a beast. It could be broken only if a beautiful girl agreed to marry me. Even though I am ugly, you decided to marry me. Thus you have saved me, my beauty. The prince set a golden carriage to fetch Beauty's father and sisters for their wedding. So Beauty and her gentle prince were married. After many years, the palace was filled with laughter and people. After the wedding feast, Beauty's two sisters could be seen hurrying around the garden. They were bending over and carefully examining each rose bush. What on earth are they looking for? Asked the prince. I think they are looking for a magic rose to wish for their own prince, said Beauty. But magic like this could surely happen only once in a lifetime. And they lived happily ever after.